touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
After a week off due to the holidays, we are back rolling with the process. Crimson Tide recruiting on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. While you are here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. You guys can check out the process every Tuesday and Thursday evening, as I will be here to break down the latest in Tide football recruiting news. The Tide officially have 25 signatures in the 2021 recruiting class. I want to discuss what the future could look like for the Tide with those 25 signatures and one verbal commitment from five-star running back Kamar Wheaton. What is the number situation for the Crimson Tide? I would dive into that. Also talk about the Tide's top remaining targets and talk about what are some of the things you guys can look out for over the next couple of months when it comes to the Tide's recruiting efforts. But before I dive into that, I do have to hit you guys with a couple of recruiting updates as always. So be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, as I said at the top of the show. Then we're going to dive right into those recruiting updates. So with that being said, let's get the process started. Let's get into a couple of recruiting updates, starting with a couple of 2022 prospects releasing their updated top schools list. One of those guys is four-star offensive lineman Cam Dewberry out of Texas. He actually released a top 10 and included Todd, along with four-star wide receiver Isaiah Horton out of Tennessee. He released a top 6 and included Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. So he has an all SEC top school list, and I definitely can see why the Tide is included, with them being so successful with spreading the ball out to all of their wide receivers throughout the season. Another 2022 prospect who is expected to release a top school list soon is the Tide's former five-star commit Jeremiah Alexander out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. He is expected to release a top 6 on January 1st. I expect the Tide to be involved because they are continuing to recruit him, even though he is no longer committed to the Tide. Alexander is definitely a kid to watch out for, as multiple 2022 prospects will continue to cut down their top school list as they continue to work through their recruitment in an unusual predicament. But this is something that they have been faced with for the last couple of months, with the NCAA having a recruiting dead period in place. But speaking of 2022 prospects, I actually had an opportunity to catch up with four-star defensive back Miles Pollard in the 2022 recruiting class. The Tide offered him on December 4th earlier this month, and they told him that they liked his playing style. They said that he had the full package because he was a defensive back who could tackle and also cover pretty well. They actually told him that a lot of defensive backs in today's game do not like to tackle and cover, because you see a lot of guys who can cover well, but they don't really want to come down and make contact. They said they really like that about Miles Pollard. You guys can check out my full interview with the four-star defensive back from Ravenwood High School in Brentwood, Tennessee over at touchdownalabama.com. Also, be sure to check out my article with the Tide's newest five-star running back commit, Kamar Wheaton's running back coach, Torrance Ross, who actually has been working with Wheaton ever since he was in 7th grade. He was actually his middle school running back coach, so I had an opportunity to catch up with Ross and talk about what Wheaton brings to the table as a football player, as well as what he brings to the table as a young man, a very humbled young man, as Ross told me. And he said that he feels that Wheaton can develop into a running back who can get it done on every down in the SEC. So be sure to check out that full interview in an article over at touchdownalabama.com. Now we are going to roll into what is next for the Crimson Tide in the 2021 recruiting class and beyond. When discussing what is next for the Crimson Tide on the recruiting trail, you first have to look at their number situation. They currently have 25 signatures, as I said at the top of the show. They also have a verbal commitment from 5-star running back Kamar Wheaton. They also have a gray shirt coming in and Caden Clark, a 4-star tight end out of Archbishop Hoban High School in Akron, Ohio. So the Tide technically has 27 pledges at the moment when we add the gray shirt and the verbal commitment to their 25 signatures. It looks as if the Tide is going to add one, possibly two more guys to this class. At one time earlier in this recruiting cycle, it looks as if the number would be 25, 26, but it looks as if the Tide can add one more recruit to this class. Of course, the University of Alabama does not publicly release their scholarship numbers. This is something that is not available to the media as well. So you have to make a assumption based off who is expected to have a scholarship when you look at the Alabama football roster. But with the Tide continuing to recruit guys here in this 2021 recruiting class, it is evident that the Tide still has room to add some more talent. Their top 3 prospects at the moment look to be Terrion Arnold, the 4-star defensive back out of Tallahassee, Florida, along with Brian Thomas Jr., the 4-star wide receiver out of Louisiana, along with 5-star defensive end JT Tuimoloau out of Washington. So looking at those top 3 prospects, it looks like the Tide is still in the mix for all 3. They are very much involved in all 3 of these guys' recruitment. It's too early to call any one of these guys recruitment in terms of which school that they would choose. I know a lot of fans want to add these particular guys to their roster. I know a lot of Tide fans want to add at least one of these guys to the Tide's 2021 recruiting class, but I think at this moment it is still too early to call what school will pull in each of these 3 prospects. I think the Tide is heavily involved with all 3, as I said. If I had to guess today, I think they are in the best position with Terrion Arnold in my mind, just with how involved Nick Saban has been in his recruitment. I think he respects the University of Alabama. He is a kid that has always had in his mind, has always planned that he wanted to announce his commitment on National Signing Day during the traditional signing period. I actually had an opportunity to spend some time with Arnold before his senior season. I got an opportunity to spend some time with his family as well, and they know the opportunity that he has. They know he is a special talent. They know he has an opportunity to play football and basketball at the next level, and they want him to evaluate all of his options from the education that he is going to get at the college that he chooses, from the football program to the basketball program, because he does have the opportunity to play both sports. So they know how important this moment is for him. So I do think the Tide is in a great position with Arnold, but he is a guy that is going to evaluate all of his options. He wants to get to Tuscaloosa before he makes an official decision. I think that would help the Tide if they are able to get him on campus. But if they are not able to get him on campus, I think they would still be in a good position regardless. I think the other 2 teams to pay attention to are obviously the Florida Gators and the Georgia Bulldogs. It still looks to be that way when you look at Arnold's recruitment. This is something that has taken shape basically over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months when we talked about Arnold's recruitment. Moving over to Brian Thomas Jr., basically the same thing. This is a kid whose recruitment is expected to most likely carry on throughout the next couple of weeks and carry on to National Signing Day during the traditional signing period in February. The Tide, the LSU Tigers, and Texas A&M look to be in a great position. I think the Aggies are in a wonderful position just based on how they played this season, based on how they recruit wide receivers, and I think Brian Thomas will fit into their offense. And I also think you have to take in consideration that the Tide does have 4 wide receiver signees. I know that the Tide has continued to recruit Brian Thomas Jr. hard, but if you are a wide receiver, I know fans like to say, "Yo, if you don't come here, you don't want to compete. You don't want to compete for playing time and just compete against the best." But 4 wide receiver signings, you pulled in 3 great wide receivers in Trayshawn Holden, Thaiu Jones-Bell, and Javon Baker in the 2020 recruiting class. That is going to be very hard to compete against and get on the field early. Texas A&M can possibly that opportunity could possibly be in play in College Station at Texas A&M. But I do feel the Tide is right in the mix. We have seen over the last couple of weeks during this 2021 recruiting cycle, you cannot count the Tide out. You can never count Alabama out. Just looking at Kamar Wheaton, the 5-star running back, he looked like an Oklahoma lean for several weeks. You can never count out Nick Saban and the Tide's coaching staff because they are great recruiters, and Nick Saban's name carry a lot of weight, and deservedly so. The Crimson Tide have continued to just dominate the college football world. So it is definitely deserved. But also looking at JT Tuimoloau out of Washington, the Tide is also still in the mix there. Like I said, a lot of people want to say that he will stay on the West Coast, which is a huge possibility at this moment, with Oregon still being heavily involved in his recruitment. And the Ducks did have a productive season, and they have continued to have productive seasons under Mario Cristobal. So the Tide is still in the mix there. Once again, you cannot count Alabama out of any of these guys' recruitment. So JT Tuimoloau, looking at Brian Thomas Jr. and Terry Arnold as well, the Tide is still in the mix. It is going to be quite interesting to see how their recruitments play out. I think Tide fans should be very relaxed because you have signed a great 2021 recruiting class, adding Kamar Wheaton as well. If the Tide does not add another recruit, they are in a great position, but Nick Saban and the Tide's coaching staff are going to continue to try to add some talent to this class. You also have to pay attention to possibly the transfer route. If the Tide does not land any of these three guys, maybe we can look at the transfer route, because the transfer portal is running rampant at the moment because so many recruits are jumping into the transfer portal due to the current state of college football with the global pandemic and the impact it has had on college football as well. So that is another avenue to pay attention to after National Signing Day, the transfer portal. That is something to keep your eyes on, because we have seen the Tide tap into the transfer portal over the last couple of seasons. Going back to last offseason, they did pull in a tight end and Carl Tucker via the transfer portal. They also pulled in Landon Dickerson, who had a huge impact on the Tide's team as a whole during the season. He was a product of the transfer portal because he transferred from Florida State to Alabama. So that is something to pay attention to possibly after National Signing Day. And the Tide's coaching staff will reassess their current situation when looking at their future roster, looking at the 2021 recruiting class and the talent that they are expected to bring in as well. Another thing to pay attention to over the next couple of months is 2022 prospects, because as I said during the recruiting update segment of today's show, 2022 prospects are continuing to cut down their top school list. They hope they can get on campus soon because they have not been able to visit any campus similar to the 2021 recruits due to the NCAA implementing that recruiting dead period. So that is something else to pay attention to. I don't expect the NCAA to lift that recruiting dead period anytime soon due to the current state of the world with the COVID-19 global pandemic going on. So that is another thing to pay attention to, because the 2022 recruiting cycle is going to be pretty interesting, because it is a chance that these guys will not have an opportunity to visit schools for almost 2 years. That is a possibility at this point. It's closing in on a year. At the moment, it is unclear when the NCAA will lift that recruiting dead period. But when you look at the 2022 prospects, they still have an opportunity to take virtual visits. And I actually had an opportunity to talk with a 2022 prospect about that experience, just experiencing virtual visits, not having an opportunity to visit campuses. And he told me that you can get a good feel, but nothing beats getting on campus, which is what you expect him to say, because nothing is going to beat getting a recruit on campus, giving him the opportunity to visit on game day, experience the fans on game day, just experience the town on game day, experience the campus on a normal day, just experience what it would feel like to be a student at that particular institution. So it is definitely something to pay attention to, just looking at 2022 recruits. But those are some of the things to look forward to over the next couple of months. The Tide continuing to recruit 2021 prospects. As I always say, a new name could emerge because the Tide's coaching staff usually keeps their board pretty open. Also pay attention to the transfer portal possibly after National Signing Day, and just pay attention to 2022 recruits continuing to cut down top school lists, continuing to evaluate all of their options, the top continuing to offer 2022 prospects as well. That will do it for this episode of The Process. Be sure to hit that subscribe button before you leave. Also be sure to leave a like. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Also, get an opportunity to read our in-depth scouting reports on each Todd commit in each recruiting class. Also, read our in-depth draft projections. So be sure to pick up your subscription to touchdownalabama.com today. Then head to the Apple App Store or to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device and download the Touchdown Alabama app so breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.